Good morning. The chart on the top is the reason the world's legacy car makers stay awake at night. And the chart on the bottom is the main reason why. We'll start with the one with the red parabolic curve. It's new vehicle sales in Australia by country of origin. China's in red, and they were basically at zero until 6 years ago. Now Chinese auto sales in Australia have gone almost vertical. China passed Germany there in 2021. Last year they passed Korea, and they'll go past Thailand probably this year. Australia does not have a domestic car industry to speak of, so they don't have one they have to protect. And so they have not put on the high tariffs and import restrictions that we have in North America and in Europe. This chart is what happens then in markets where lawmakers have not raised tariffs specifically to keep Chinese cars out of their countries. This is every country, in other words, that does not single out Chinese brands. A huge part of the reason is that consumers are switching over to electric cars. This may or may not be motivated to save the world, but they're doing it to save money. EVs just cost less, especially if they're coming from China. And the author of this piece from Australian media thinks that things look pretty bad for Japanese brands in Australia. Japanese car makers missed the boat on EVs. They have a dominant position in hybrid vehicles, but Japan didn't build electric vehicles for Australia. They thought the next evolution in transportation would be for hydrogen cars, but there's only one place in Australia it's possible to refuel them. Unless that changes in a hurry, the Japanese hydrogen vehicles aren't going to be competitive against China's battery cars. What consumers are demanding right now are electric vehicles, and Japan doesn't have any. And the more EVs China sells, both in Australia and the rest of the world, bring benefits to Australia's mining industry. China is buying 100 times more lithium from Australia compared to 10 years ago. That leads into why this second chart is so important, the supply chain aspects of China's factory sectors. These are the key materials and elements needed for the energy systems around the world. This isn't just for electric cars, it's electric everything, from the magnets and circuits inside of a cell phone to the cables that bring electricity to your house. Everything you see here that is in purple or orange or gray, these countries are very friendly with China. Usually they're producers working with China on an exclusive contract, and they're often minority owned by the Chinese themselves, no matter where it is. CIS is in light blue, and that is Russia and all their closest neighbors, so you can guess who they would prefer to be doing business with these days. Occasionally you see a tiny sliver of dark blue, which is North America. Europe, ex-Russia, is in red, combined with the rest of the world. This means that China and its industrial belts have the supply chains they need to make all these cars, while Europe and North America do not have them. Australia is part of Asia Pacific, so for them this relationship is simple. They sell raw materials to China, China builds cars and electronics for the entire global market, and they sell some of that output back to Australia. Australia is the world's #1 producer of lithium and has over 40% of global production of lithium. China is by far the biggest buyer of lithium because China is by far the biggest producer of lithium batteries. Here is the chart for that from Chemical and Engineering News. 45% of the world's lithium comes out of the ground in Australia, but way over half of all the lithium is sent to China for refining and then into manufactured products. So Australian lithium feeding China's refineries and factories represents a relationship that nobody in Germany or in the United States or in Japan can offer to Australia on a macroeconomic level. And we can forget about beating the Chinese on price. In the Australian market, here are your options. Tesla's EVs are made in China and cost $70,000. Chinese brands are a little bit more than half that, $40,000. Mercedes and BMWs are way over $100,000. It was Chinese car companies that brought EVs to the mass market in Australia, and Chinese cars cost less because they own the factory sector and the supply chains for all the raw materials that are needed to make them. From the perspective of Chinese car makers, this is where the opportunity is. They look at the Australian market, which was dominated by strong foreign brands from Japan and Europe and the United States. But they're all at high price points. For Chinese EV makers, their competition would be Tesla in Australia at $70,000. If they can make cars here and ship them to Australia, they've got the market up to Tesla. Chinese brands can build cars profitably here for under $30,000. They're making money at less than half what Tesla is charging in Australia. So that's the ceiling, $70,000. And they'll be taking market share as soon as their cars come off the ships. From the perspective of those same legacy car makers from Japan, Europe, and the United States, it's the price of the Chinese cars that's killing them above all else. The Australian market is a developed world market, and Australians are proving through their buying behavior that brand loyalty does not run very deep, and neither do they care much where the cars are coming from. Were a Chinese EV priced at, say, $65,000 and the Tesla is $70,000, they would probably buy the brand they know. But at $40,000, they're going to switch. This is Fushan Lake, and the video was shared by a viewer vacationing there. This spot is famous for map geeks. Yushi, China is here. It's the center of the Yushi circle, which is the smallest circle you can draw on a world map that includes half the world's population. This is Fushan Lake, Yushi in Hunan province. And over half the population of the planet lives within a 5-hour plane ride of this spot right here. Be good. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. Everyone who hears